Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
It's strange, thinking back on all of it now, how it unraveled so quickly, so quietly. Kathy and I had been married for 12 years. I thought we were solid. Sure, my work was demanding, especially after Dad passed and I was thrust into running the construction business. But I always figured Kathy understood. We'd built a life together, had Maria, and despite the long hours and the constant travel, I thought I was doing right by them both. I was wrong. Coming home early that day without warning, I walked into a different life than the one I thought I had. Kathy wasn't just cheating. She was regularly sleeping with her boss, Ben. Maybe the fact that we shared the same name made it worse somehow, like I was being replaced by some alternate version of myself. The shock of it was dull, though. I'd been so consumed by work that when I found out, it didn't hit me like I expected it would. Maybe I'd seen it coming but didn't want to admit it. What hit harder was losing Maria. The divorce was quick, cleaner than most, thanks to the prenuptial. I didn't lose my assets, the company, or the legacy my father left me, but I lost custody of my daughter. That was the real price I paid. And Kathy, she married Ben, the second one, and settled into a different life. They weren't rich by my standards, but they did all right. For a while, things seemed civil between us, until Kathy made it her mission to sever the last thread connecting me to Maria. She enrolled Maria in every activity she could think of, packing her schedule so tightly that it became impossible for me to spend time with her without pulling her out of something. And every time I did, Kathy was on my case, telling me I was being selfish, that I wasn't thinking about Maria's future. I fought for a while. I tried to see her, to maintain some connection, but eventually, I gave up. I couldn't keep playing the villain in Kathy's narrative. So, I backed out. I sent a letter through my attorney, putting the ball in Kathy's court. I told her that I would be available for visitation whenever they called me, but I wouldn't be the one to initiate it anymore. I wanted my 4 days a month with Maria, but I didn't want to keep fighting for them. Over time, those 4 days turned into one, and then into nothing at all. In the last 4 years, I've seen Maria only a handful of times. She's grown up now, turned 18, and when that happened, I stopped paying child support. I didn't have to, but it felt pointless. She had made her choice. Maria wasn't interested in having a relationship with me. She was her mother's daughter, through and through. She'd written me off long before that. None of her friends knew who I was, and when she got engaged, I didn't even know the young man's name until the wedding invitations arrived in the mail. I stood there at the door, staring at Maria as if I hadn't seen her in years, because, really, I hadn't. She looked different, grown up, but I could still see glimpses of the little girl I used to know. She held out the invitation, a wedding card with her name on it, and for a split second, I felt this strange mix of pride and pain. My daughter, getting married. But that joy was fleeting. I told her I'd be there. Of course, I would. Despite everything, I was still her father. But when I asked if I was supposed to walk her down the aisle, her response hit me harder than I expected. In the most casual, matter-of-fact way, she said she wanted her pops to walk her, not her dad. Pops, not her dad. I'm not even sure how I kept my face from showing it, but inside, that hurt like hell. That word, pops, felt like the final confirmation that I was no longer part of her life in any meaningful way. Ben, her mother's husband, was her pops, the man who filled the role I'd been forced to abandon. I guess it was inevitable, but still, hearing it from her lips, so casually, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, it was like a punch to the gut. I didn't argue. What could I say? I just nodded, told her I understood, and watched as she left. She wasn't cruel about it, not intentionally. She probably didn't even realize what it did to me. But last night was far from peaceful. I tossed and turned, replaying that moment over and over. She didn't want her dad to walk her down the aisle. I tried to remind myself that I'd made my choices, and maybe I had to live with the consequences. But that didn't make it any easier. For all the hard work, the success I built, the life I constructed after the divorce, it felt like I'd failed in the one thing that mattered most. And now, I had to face the reality that my role in Maria's life had been reduced to a distant memory, a name on an invitation. I'll be at that wedding, but I'll be sitting in the audience, watching another man walk my daughter down the aisle, wondering how things got so far off course. But then, the next morning when I got up, I decided to do something that I never thought about in the last 10 years, turn into a vengeful monster. I can't tell you here that when a very rich man makes up his mind to screw up the lives for a not-so-rich man, he can generally do it, especially if the very rich man has nothing to lose. I called in my lawyer and asked him to set up a company within the next week which would run a chain of flower shops, the business that Ben II was in, and open a flurry of shops right next to each and every shop he owned. I also instructed him to keep the prices of the flowers exactly half of what Ben's shop was offering. I told him that I wanted all the shops open by mid-next week. Then I called my interior decoration department head and my PR division head and asked them to step up on this. I wanted the shops to look dazzling, and I wanted the media blitzkrieg to be unprecedented. Then I called my security division chief and asked him to create a dossier on the groom-to-be in the next 24 hours. I asked my accountants for the name of the bank where the child support checks were deposited. It was likely that Ben had his business account with them too. A few phone calls later I knew that Ben had taken a large advance on his account just a few days prior. It was to facilitate the marriage of my former daughter, no doubt. That would mean that he would not be able to pump in any new cash into his business anytime soon. I called my HR division and asked them to poach the best employees of Ben's shops at double their current salaries. Ben was going to be a very busy man in the next few days. The new company was established in the name of a friend of mine from Nevada, and its headquarters was registered in Nevada as well. Nobody would be able to tie the company with me without looking deep, something that Ben will be too busy to do. The groom-to-be was a nice young man with a huge student loan on his head. He worked as a realtor and had, in the past, handled a few of my construction sites as well. I did not want to ruin the life of Maria. Ben was off balance the very first day of the opening of my new shops. He suddenly was short-staffed and, more importantly, short on customers. Openings of my shops with one major Hollywood star attending each opening was all over page 3 of all newspapers. It was 3 days into the game that the shit hit the fan. I woke up in the morning to find my ex-wife and my former daughter at my doorsteps. "What have you done?" shouted Kathy as soon as she entered the house. I could see that Maria was also looking very glum. "What are you talking about?" I said that I would come to the wedding. I did nothing to upset Maria. I actually had no clue what she was talking about, so I played dumb. "You know what I am talking about, you scumsucker. Why did you open up a chain of shops right next to Ben's? Why are you selling flowers at half the price of what it costs for you to buy them? What shops are you talking about?" "The shops that you opened in the name of that no-good pauper friend of yours, Steve. You did not think I would remember the bum? He is an orthodontist, and at that too a bad one. Why are you doing this after 10 years of not caring at all?" I knew the game was up, but I had not done anything illegal yet. I decided to show my fangs. And why should that concern you? I have a right to open any business I feel like, and see at any prices I feel like. In fact, this company is one of my charity foundations where I am offering the public flowers at cheaper rates so that they can show love and respect for those they care about. If you can find anything illegal in this, sue me. Maria spoke for the first time. Pops had a heart attack in the morning. The way things are moving, he would be out of business in the next 1 month. You have taken everything away from him because you have money. I hate you. How could you do this, him? You know Mom and I depend on him for support. I turned to her and said, I was not angry anymore. After all these years of silence and hurt, I was feeling sad for the first time. Truly spoken. I have money and I have taken away his business from him, but tell me, how is it any different from what he did? Why did you not grow up to hate him? Pop has never done a bad thing in his whole life. She shot back. No, he has never done a bad thing in his whole life. When he slept with my wife, he was doing something every morally upright man does. You say that I have money and he does not, and I am using it to take his business away. He had time and I did not, and he used it to take my wife and my daughter away from me. How is that different? But of course, what I am doing is beyond disgust, and what he did was the thing sainthood is made for. You say you and your mom depended on him, and I took that away from you, and you hate me for it. I depended on my wife at a time when my father had died and more than 1,200 employees were looking at me, and he took her away from me. Why don't you hate your pop for it? Maria looked away. Why do you bring this up after 10 years? Kathy asked, more politely now. Because I am tired of being the bad guy for nothing. If I am going to be painted as a villain, I bloody well will be one. I should have fought tooth and nail for Maria instead of thinking that you would best by her. I should have raised hell when you denied me chances to meet and see my only reason to smile, my daughter. Instead, I backed down and thought that it was best if I did not destroy her childhood by making life difficult for you. I should have ruined the scumsucker who cucked me so that he would be on the roads, and you would have no choice but to stay with me and keep my Maria with me. I should have filed for full custody when you refused to let me take Maria with me on that holiday to France, even though it was turned to spend summer holiday with her. I looked at her with the disgust I was feeling for her at this time. Maria spoke up. You never had the time for me. I was starved for affection. After a while, it became clear to me that you had divorced me as well, along with Mom, and it was only then I took Pop as a father and pushed you out of my mind. I met you at times because Mom told me that if I refused to meet you, there would be legal repercussions. She said you would file a case against her. I only met you out of fear, not out of love. Wait a minute. I asked her to hold on while I called up my attorney. I asked him to fax me the letter that I had sent to Kathy so many years ago. Within the next 15 minutes, I had a faxed copy of the letter and also the receipt with Kathy's signature on it. Read this and tell me if I did not have the time for you. I also have recording of the phone calls that made to your mom to request time to meet with you and being brushed off. I must have hundreds of such call and a few calls where you have rudely asked me not to call you about fixing up time. Rather you mom, and that hurt. What was my mistake in all this? My only mistake was that my father died, and then I had to run a company which I had no clue how to do. I was inexperienced and I did it because 1,200 people worked in that company and they depended on me to keep the company afloat. I did spend a lot of time away from the two of you, but it was to bring home the money that we needed to live. You of all people, Maria, have no reason to be bitter about it. In the last 10 years, I have not paid any alimony to your mom, but I have made you go to the best school, the best college, and have all the best amenities that you could think of. Do you think I was unaware that you were spending a lot of your money on you mom and pops? You stole money from me and gave it to them. That is correct. It was stealing. The credit card I gave you was for your expenditure on the campus, and you regularly bought flight tickets for your mom and pops to visit you on that card, and you refused to see me the one time I was in town. How do you think I felt at that time? I was pissed off, bloody pissed off, but I kept quiet because I gave you the card to keep you happy. If being near your mom and pops made you happy, so be it. I was seething with anger now. After reading the letter, Maria was looking at her mother with the same anger that was directed to me some time ago. I should not ruin your pops maybe, but I will. I will bring him down with one thing that I have, and he does not. After all, he brought my world crashing down with what he had. If now, your mom wants to have a husband who has money, she is most welcome to marry me after divorcing the a-hole. She will not be loved, but she will have time and money from me. I do need companionship. What kind of person do you think I am? Snapped Kathy. The kind of person who deserts her husband and sleeps around with another man because one facet of her life is unfulfilled. It is a man's job to bring two things to his wife, money and his time. I was bringing money and not my time, and you deserted me. Now, in coming days he will be so poor that he will be looking for money to buy a pot to piss in. So, he will neither give you money nor time. Will you be able to live with it? Is your love for a cuck scumsucker who slept with a married woman greater than the love you had for a hard-working man who fathered your child? Kathy finally lost, and there was no fight left in her. Just then Maria spoke up. Dad, do you have it in you to let me move in with you? I cannot go back to live with people who took my dad away from me. If you do not agree to let me move in, I will move into a motel and then find a place to stay. I guess my marriage is not going to go through. I will not walk down the aisle in a marriage ceremony paid for by two lying individuals. I do not know if my relation with Jake will survive after this, but I hope he loves me enough to look past this. Kathy was openly crying now. Maria was looking at me with tears in her eyes, not sure of what my decision would be. Maria, you can move in right now, if you feel like. I am sure that you have things at your mom's that you would like to bring. Go and bring them now, while I talk to your mom. After Maria left, I turned towards Kathy. She had calmed down by now and was looking clueless. She finally spoke up. Have you hated me so much? Did you give me a reason not to? I only wanted to have a normal life for me and my daughter. Our daughter, I corrected her. You forgot in your quest for normalcy that it is not normal for a father to cry himself to sleep at night because his daughter thinks he is a heartless scumsucker. You forgot it is not normal for a husband to go to sleep thinking that he has failed his wife. It is not normal for a husband to walk in on his naked wife getting screwed by her boss. Where was anything normal in your so-called normal life for me? You screwed me up so bad that I have not had a single meaningful relationship in 10 years. I guess I was being so selfish that I did not see how much hurt I was causing you. You are still being selfish, letting yourself off so easily. The equation had 4 people, me, you, Maria, and Ben. Ben has had a heart attack. Maria has just lost all that she has believed in for the last 10 years. I have been reduced to a sadist, and you are stuck with a husband with no health, no wealth, and no time for you. I see that you have successfully destroyed 4 lives. I looked hard at her. But now you have one chance to make things right for Maria, provided you can think of someone beside yourself. Anything to make my baby happy. I will take over all the expenses for the marriage so that she goes ahead with the marriage. My only condition is that on the day of her marriage, you will not be in town. If you can do it, I will make things right for Maria. She started crying and nodded her head. I am ready to do anything for Maria. I should have felt lousy for being such an a-hole, but I was just happy. I could see that the rest of her life was going to be miserable. I had always wanted to start a European branch, and there was a construction company in Germany up for sale. I was sure that Jake would be an ideal candidate for being my eyes and ears there. I've come this far, haven't I? Torn their lives apart piece by piece. Ben's gone. Took his life 5 years after Maria's wedding. I remember the news hitting me, but it barely registered. I felt worse when I lost a goldfish as a kid. Kathy's hanging on by a thread now, scraping by on food stamps after I got her fired from 3 jobs. She knows I'm not letting her off the hook. Not after everything. And now she's in this pit. She knows there's no way out, except one. From what I hear, she's saved just enough to buy a gun. A few more weeks, maybe she'll have enough for the bullet too. Then it's only a matter of time. I wonder if she thinks about it every night, about how much more of this she can take. And here I am, wondering if I should stop. Should I be charitable? Should I let her live? If you can even call what she's doing living? Part of me knows I could, if I wanted. I could back off, stop grinding her into the dirt. But the other part of me, it's still hungry. Still feels like there's something left to take from her. I thought revenge would feel different. I thought once Ben was gone, once I'd watched Kathy's life fall apart, I'd feel something more than this. Satisfaction? Closure? I don't know. But what I do know is, I've won. If that's what you call it. I've taken everything from her, and yet I still feel that bitterness sitting inside me. So, should I stop? Should I let her buy that gun and put an end to it? Or should I finally let go? I've carried this hate for so long. I'm not sure what's left of me without it. Maybe I'm too far gone to stop. Or maybe letting go is the only way to find some peace for myself. But can I even do that after everything? I don't know. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.